Hello, welcome. Today I have a very special guest on. We have Caleb Grace, who is the designer of Lord of the Rings, the card game, as well as Marvel Champions, which are some of my favorite games of all time, and I'm sure the viewers some of their favorite games of all time. Super happy to have you on. How are you doing today, Caleb?
I'm doing great, thanks. I'm just gonna have to correct you real quick. I did not design Lord of the Rings. That was Nate French. I worked as lead designer on the line for about 8 years, but just want to
Yes.
make sure no one sees me sitting there going, "Sure, I'll take credit for Nate's
Yeah,
work."
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I probably got what you mean, but I like to clarify that just in case.
And
I am co-designer for Marvel Champions along with Nate French again and Michael Boggs, and now co-lead design with Tony Fanchi.
excellent. Yes, that's what I meant. You spent a lot of time on these games. How about
Yep,
that? a
this is
lot, a
all
lot of
true.
your
Yeah, sorry
years,
to
a
come in and
decade.
correct you. Just
No, no, no.
don't want to be
Please
perceived
do.
as taking credit
Please
from
do.
people.
Excellent. Well, it is so happy to have you on. I met you at Gen Con after I played through the first scenario of the new campaign, Mutant Genesis. So I played through
Yeah, and you're still
Sabretooth.
talking to me, so that's a good sign.
Okay, we'll get into it a little bit later. I love Mutant Genesis. I think all of the
Awesome.
scenarios in there are just phenomenal. But that first time where you set up for Sabretooth, that's a slog of a game.
It can be. He
It
can.
can be.
He'll punish you if you come against him like a normal villain. Yep.
Yeah. And I was sitting there playing with three people I had not met before, and which was an
Mm.
amazing experience. We did it at one of the ticketed events there at Gen Con. And because we were Sabretooth heals right after every activation, and we were just kind of playing them where you'd kind of just ping them and you just heal it back. You ping them. It's like, okay,
Yep.
well, this isn't working. We need some bigger damage. But
Right.
but yeah, no, it was excellent. Then after that, I saw your name tag. I saw you there, and so asked you to come on. You graciously said yes, and now we get to talk about Marvel Champions. So
Yeah. Should be fun.
excellent. I do want to kind of talk about the design. So I
Hmm.
have a lot of friends. I don't think that I have the capability or the interest in designing. I'm more of a consumer, but I have a lot of friends and a lot of people I know like designing games. So I'm curious about some of your design processes and how that works. So is there like a general overview? Do you have like a list of mechanics, or do you try and build heroes to kind of how they would appear in the comics, or how does that go over if you have an idea for a new hero?
Yeah. Okay. So starting with like a new hero,
Yeah.
um, I think we have a very kind of natural game design process where we really start with who is this hero? What makes this hero special? Like, what are their powers? What is their backstory? What is their personality? And the goal is to replicate all of that in the game so that when you open up that hero pack and get it to the table and start playing, you feel like you're playing that particular hero. And it's been super gratifying for me and everybody else in the team that consistently comes up as maybe one of the biggest draws to the game is that people feel like, wow, when I play Iron Man, I feel like Iron Man, or when I play, She-Hulk, I feel like She-Hulk, and that's really rewarding to hear. And I think you can see it too, like in the different versions. Like we have Peter Parker Spider-Man and
Mm-hmm.
Miles Morales Spider-Man, and we also have Gwen Stacy, Ghost Spider, and we find ways to make them feel different too because Marvel does that work for us ahead of time. Those are
Yeah.
three characters with similar powers but very different, personalities and backstories, and so it's very fertile ground for us to play in.
Absolutely. Is there a hero that you think you've just absolutely nailed that personality? Like, is there one that kind of stands above the rest in your
Mm.
mind?
I'm pretty happy with like all the heroes we've done for
Yeah.
for capturing the essence of who they are, but I do have some favorites, but it's probably more to do with they're just my favorite characters.
Yeah.
Like I appreciate the Captain America tee you're wearing. Captain America is a favorite of mine as well, and so I really enjoyed designing his hero kit just with the I could do this all day
Yep.
ability. Just being able to ready up and throw the shield and catch it in your hand, like all these things that were just little things that made me smile, and they all kind of add up to that experience. And more recently, I think Cyclops is another one that I'm really proud of. Cyclops is my longest, oldest favorite Marvel
Yeah.
character. since I started reading the books, yeah, way back in the early '90s, X-Men #1. I just love that cover where he's blasting away at Magneto, and I thought that guy looks awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, it's a real treat to be able to design them, and I think because I'm so passionate about those characters, then it inspires the design, and
Mm-hmm.
then I end up real happy with it that it translates to other people and they're getting it too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think probably my well, it's also my favorite, but the hero that I think works so well is Quicksilver, like with his
Hmm.
reading ability. It's just like
Hmm.
that theme to mechanic implementation right there is just excellent. And then
Yeah, that was Boggs. I
yeah,
remember him asking about that one in particular because we had just designed Captain America not too long before, right? So we kind of already had a hero who readied,
yeah,
but kind of went about it in a different way. And so when we were brainstorming, and Boggs was like, I kind of feel like super speed is just being able to ready. I said, yeah, that sounds perfect, and then explained how he was going to do it different from Cap because Captain America's like, and he's got to discard a card to ready, so he's kind of got to pay that cost.
mm-hmm.
Like when you're Cap, you kind of replicating that moment. Like maybe like End Game where he's got to cinch up the shield and stand back up and grimace. That's how Captain America
Yep,
readies. But Quicksilver's just zipping around
just
like, I do a
everywhere.
thing, I ready. I do another thing, I ready. And it's like,
Yep,
yeah. And so it's great to hear that even for you, you're mentioning that feels really thematic and it's different enough, right? So
yeah,
that's cool to hear.
yeah. And then also Iron Man. You can't
Mm.
say you don't feel Iron Man's essence when you're playing Iron Man. You are literally building out his suit.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
just
that one
incredibly
was
fun.
very Nate French inspired. That's
Really?
his favorite character. Oh yeah. Yeah, he loved playing Iron Man and he would tell the same joke every day during development. His favorite line from the movie where he'd be like, Tony Stark built this in a cave, from a box of scraps. And oh gosh, it never ceases to make me laugh. I feel like I have to bring it up every time
Oh
the
yeah.
subject of Iron Man comes up. Yeah, we had a lot of fun, the three of us collaborating on the design early on and doing that.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it's just kind of a absolute playground of mechanics
Hmm.
and theme. So it kind of you mentioned that you started reading X-Men and or the comics in the early 90s. So is this kind of always been something that you've wanted to do, implement this type of theme into a game? And have you always been a fan of the Marvel universe, or is this kind of been amplified by the design in the last couple of years?
So a couple questions in there, right?
Yeah.
As far as like ambitions and goals of becoming a designer or working on the X-Men, that was honestly never on my radar. Of course, once I got to FFG and once we got the opportunity to make Marvel Champions, then absolutely my first thought is, okay, but can we do the X-Men? Like I want to design Cyclops.
Yeah.
Um, but no, as far as like how I got here, that was just more like good luck, kind of happenstance. Um, so I don't know. That was the first part of that question. There were a few in there, so I'm not sure what the others were. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, like have you always been just like a huge fan of Marvel or a fan of
Mm,
Marvel, or is that kind of has that amplified after designing the game for what, like 4 years
yeah,
now? Well, it's been out for 4 years, but
it's been a
you've probably
while.
been
Yeah,
designing for longer than that.
yeah. I'm sure we started as early as 2018. But as far as being a Marvel fan, yeah, that goes way back to being a kid. I only started collecting comic books, in 1991. But my brother had some Spider-Man and a few other random books that I would, ask his permission to read or just sneak him out when he wasn't home. You know,
Yeah.
um, and I remember one of my happiest memories as a kid. It's very random because my memories are so sporadic. But I went to the local library, and they used to just keep long boxes of
Hmm.
comics like at the local library. And I opened this up and I'm thumbing through, and I found a Secret Wars, and it was like halfway through the story, like the original, 80s event Secret Wars. And I'm reading this comic, and it opens up with like all the heroes, like not just Spider-Man, but it's Fantastic Four and Avengers and Hulk, and they're all trapped under a mountain that the bad guys have dropped a mountain on them. And you're like, what is this? And like the Hulk is in there like holding up the mountain
Yeah.
so that they're not crushed. And Mr. Fantastic is borrowing gear from Spider-Man and Iron Man to create some contraption that's going to get them out. And he's antagonizing the Hulk as the Hulk's like complaining, like, hurry up, I'm getting tired. And he's like, oh, I thought you were strong. And then, he realizes after, like, oh, you were intentionally making me angry. I've been a
Hulk
Marvel
and
fan since I was a
yeah,
kid. I
yeah,
think, just like kids today, it's like it's everywhere. You
yeah.
see Spider-Man t-shirts and stuff at Target, right?
I
Like
think I
whenever you
bought
go
this from
shopping.
Target, so I mean,
Yep,
like,
yep. It's where I
yeah.
get mine too. Yeah, they
Oh
got the
yeah,
good ones.
it's yeah. Go to Target, Meyer, Kohl's. They all have different selections. You can just deck out your entire wardrobe in Superman or superhero gear right
I
there
used
at
to
your
look
local
at
store.
in the comics I would buy in the 90s, like those X-Men issues, they would have advertisements like you could special order like X-Men t-shirts
Oh,
or X-Men
cool.
posters because you couldn't find them in stores then. And now it's like, yeah, now you just go to Target and they're there.
Yep.
Like how nice is that? But yeah, it was probably the toy line in the 80s. Like the
Mm.
Secret Wars event was written for the toy line and it ended up like outlasting the toy line, like
Yeah.
completely. So, but yeah, I think it's just being around it, just drawn to it, naturally, and been a fan ever since.
Hmm.
Um, the number of comics I read has gone up quite a bit since working on the game because
Okay.
I used to just follow X-Men, and then when the movie started coming out, I started following Avengers as well. And now it's like whatever looks good to me, I'll check it out just because it's like, well, that character might end up in my game at some point,
Yeah.
so might as well get to know him now.
Yeah, and then so like as you're reading through those comics, do mechanics like game mechanics start popping into your head, and do you have like a long list of those
Mm.
mechanics that are kind of on the back burner that you're like, ooh, I could slide this in with Cyclops, right? Like before he came out, or do you have like a notepad somewhere with everything that you want to implement at some point?
I feel like I used to do more of that when I first started at Fantasy Flight, and it was all like just the idea of game design was all new to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I would like go out to dinner by myself, just to have a little quiet time, and I would sit at the restaurant with a notepad and just write down, because I was working on Lord of the Rings at the time. I'd write down like quest ideas or enemy ideas, hero ideas. I just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like doodling. But nowadays, no, I don't really do that anymore because I feel like after 10 plus years, like I know the ideas are there. I know that they'll come.
You're an
So for
expert at
me,
it.
if I'm reading a Marvel comic, I'm just enjoying the story. And
Nice.
it's like I said, once we know we're gonna do that character, then the first thing I'll do is kind of like make a list of like, okay, when I think of this character, what are all the things that come to mind? What are the
Mm-hmm.
things I want to make sure to include? So like for Cyclops, it's like, well, his visor, right? That's like one of the
Yep.
first things you think of.
Yep.
You think of Cyclops, you think of his visor, you think of his leadership, stuff like that. Um, there's other characters like Wolverine or Gambit. We just announced, like imagine Gambit. You think, what do you think when you think Gambit? He's got his staff, he's got his armor, right? He's a member of the Thieves Guild, he's got a relationship with Rogue, like these kind of things. You just
Yeah.
do this mental checklist and you start writing them down, and then you figure out, okay, which one of these are going to go into the deck, um,
Yeah.
so yeah, and then from there, then it's like, okay, what does it do? So you kind of find a hook. You find a hook, and then you take all these things that need to be in there, and you start to design them around that hook.
Right. Well, yeah. So when I saw Gambit, I have always been a huge Gambit fan. So Gambit's always
Hmm.
been like it was Cyclops for you. Gambit for me is the
Okay,
one that
cool.
I kind of like connected with because back in middle high school, I did a lot of like card magic and like did all the like card flourishes and all that cool stuff. And
Okay.
so having Gambit be that superhero that also did all of that. So when I saw the announcement for Gambit, I was so excited. And I love like the charge the card and throw the
Yeah.
card ability. I think
Nice.
that is so interesting. And I've said it so many times on other videos that I think one of the things that you and your design team and the design team does really well is with these new heroes is bringing in cards that we don't get a lot of table time and breathing new life into them. So we saw a lot of that with Spider Ham and Ghost Spider, where it's like a lot of these cards that are like responses that it's like, oh, that's
Hmm.
not the greatest. Maybe like I'm gonna find another spot. Now is excellent in Ghost Spider's deck, and so is that something that you look to do, or is that just something that's kind of a happy occurrence? Is oh like these are some of the cards that may seem a little underpowered. Let's see if we can design something to make them a little bit stronger, or is that just nice to happen?
It's a bit of both. I
Yeah.
think it's probably more a situation of when we start designing a new hero, we can evaluate where the card pool is at that time,
Mm.
and we can say like, oh, here's a suite of cards that doesn't see much play, and it would be fun, you know, if we're already going to do this thing with this hero, they might as well boost these old cards.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes too, it's like planting those seeds, though, right? Like when we were creating tactic cards, it had more to do with flavor of
Hmm.
like, what trait would you give this? Well, it feels like a tactic. And then after a while, you're like, oh, we've got a few tactic cards in the game now. What can we do with that? So it's a very natural kind of evolution for a living card game.
Hmm. So whenever you are creating a trait or a card with a trait, do you typically have a plan to utilize that trait somewhere down the line, or is it there and then it's we can come back and revisit this like with the tactic upgrades with Cyclops later, and it just you're leaving it the door open for design space in the future?
It's probably more the latter, though
Okay.
sometimes it's intentional. Like we did a lot of Shield traded stuff, in the
Yeah.
core. And
Yeah.
then just because Shield's such an important part of the Marvel universe, and when you're designing four aspects that need to feel like they don't belong to anyone in particular, like Shield's kind of that
Hmm.
group in the Marvel universe. They interface with everybody. Um, but it was great then, when Boggs was brainstorming the sinister motives to say like, look, I've been reading Miles Morales comic books, and like he works a lot with Shield. So like maybe we should do some more Shield. It's like, yeah, we've already laid the ground floor for that. So go to town. So yeah, it's nice with like, so sometimes like with the example of Shields, like yeah, we know we're going to do more with that in the future.
Right.
And then sometimes like with the tactic, it just kind of works out great. When we get there, that we're like, well, Cyclops is a brilliant tactician. Hey, look at this. There's all these tactics. Got it.
Yep. 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 I I love Cyclops. Cyclops was so much fun to
Oh, I'm
play.
glad to hear that.
He was so. What I do is I take each hero, and I've just started this series, and I play each one of them through the four aspects to kind of get a feel for them and like how that works. And if it's a new hero, I do it blind. So I open and play, trying to build the decks on stream, just live. And Cyclops, I opened and I was like, this is so incredibly fun. Like, just
Good.
like and then I have just built a deck that I've been really happy with, where it's just kind of bringing Maria Hill back as many times as you possibly can in like a four-player game to have, because
Sure.
you can go grab rapid response. And so you
Mhm.
just always have that in Scott Summers, flip up, and it's just like I played it at a four-player game, and I didn't really do much other than just putting like 3 to 4 cards in everyone else's hand every single turn.
There you go.
Yeah. Which so like that was just something that has kind of been fun, and like a lot of people will find ways or like unique interactions between the cards. Um how how do you go about like balancing new cards when they come out, or new heroes, and how they would interact with old cards? Is there like a specific
Oh, are we
process you
supposed
look
to
at?
do that? Oh
Oh, I don't.
shoot! I knew we forgot to summon. We just, whatever. No, I'm joking. I'm totally joking. Yeah, the balancing is like one of the hardest things
Oh, I'm
with a
sure.
living card game, and we put a lot of time and effort into it. One of my guiding philosophies is that we're not trying to make stronger, better cards. We're just trying to make different cards.
Yeah.
You know that some heroes I think feel naturally a little stronger than others, and part of that's by design. because when you have a character like Thor, who's a literal Norse god, and then you have Hawkeye,
Right.
who's
Right.
seriously a dude with a bow and arrow,
Right.
like there should be maybe a feeling of a little power discrepancy. But at the same time, in terms of balance, like both heroes need to be able to play through
Hmm.
campaigns, play and defeat villains. And so, yeah, it is maybe the hardest thing
Yeah.
for the design team to do is to strike that balance of thematically this feels right, but also just game balance. It still works. It's fun. We rely on our testers a lot for that, particularly with discovering card combos and that because as the card pool grows and we have to come up with more and more stuff, don't have time to test all of those
Right.
combinations. Um, Even with the robust team that we do, there's still going to be combinations we don't discover and things that don't manifest until after it's out in the wild. So it's an imperfect process, but we do the best we can with it. It is when you consider all the things we're juggling, it's really kind of amazing that the game functions as well as it does. Because
Right.
you're talking about a cooperative game that's for 1 to 4 players, and anyone who's played 1, 2, 3, and 4 players understands that each one of those experiences is a very different experience.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then you're not just 1 to 4 players; it's different hero combinations against different villains with different modular set combinations. Like
Hmm.
the variable, this is what keeps the game so replayable, but it
Right.
also makes it really difficult
Yeah.
to get right, which I think is maybe why I find myself focusing on the theme so much, like we've been
Mm.
talking about,
Yeah.
because that's as long as people feel like it feels right and they're having a good time. That's the most important thing. Is keep it
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine kind of everything that would go into trying to balance every single card because anytime you put out new content, you have that kind of there's going to be something, especially as the game progresses, that it's like, okay, well, that that works really, really well. And with a cooperative game, I think that's fun and fine. You're playing superheroes. You want to be super like
Mhm.
powerful and exciting, and like it's not a competitive game where you're not just gonna have the same things over and over and over. I don't play Magic, but like I've heard that a lot of times like in the waves like that can be very you just see like the same decks all the time. So I love the variability. There you go, English
Mhm.
words
Mhm.
that you can have because you don't have to run the best. You're just running something that's fun and thematic, and so I really appreciate that. Has there been something that you kind of look back at and you're like, kind of wish we had done that just a little bit differently to open up design space, or you've had to change kind of future designs because of a specific villain or hero or way that the game functions?
It's a good question. Kind of two separate questions there, right? Like one, is there something we would do differently with hindsight? And two, is there something we've designed that limits our future options? I'm happy to say with the second one, like, no, I can't think of anything that we've made that it's like, oh, I would design this thing, except doggone this card exists
Yeah.
and it just ruins it for us. And there I have an advantage of, spending 8 years working on Lord of the Rings prior and
Yeah.
gaining that experience and seeing how certain cards can impact the card pool for the entire life of the game. Um, and so we were very careful, like when launching champions, to save a lot of those really powerful, problematic abilities for individual hero kits.
Hmm.
Um, and also just coming up with some guiding principles. Um, so, like, to get more specific, anyone who's played Lord of the Rings knows that a test of will is maybe the most powerful card in the game. And it
I
definitely impacted future design space when you know that any treachery you create can be canceled by a 1 cost spirit event.
Yep. I
Um,
need that in Marvel, by the way. If you're
well,
taking
you're never
notes,
going to get it. That was actually
that's
one
fair.
of
That's
the
fair.
that was one of the guiding principles was like we are not going to make a card like this for an aspect that just becomes part of the card pool proper.
Right.
Instead, we might make cards like it, but they'll always have a different cost. Like you have Black Widow in the core set. who can cancel a card, but then you have to reveal another one,
Yep.
you know. So it can help you dodge that shadow of the past when you really don't want your nemesis to come out, but you're still going to have to reveal another card. And then it opened up creative space within hero kits for people like Spider-Man or Adam Warlock who have these mystic senses. They get to have basically a test of will or something
Hmm.
similar to it that
Hmm.
they can cancel a card because that's who they are in the comics.
Right.
So those were kind of lessons that we learned, and they helped us to yeah, to just guide our design. As far as cards that we would like look back and do better, I mean, what designer doesn't? To say otherwise would basically to be like, oh, I'm a perfect designer and I've never made a mistake and my designs are always the best. And while that's mostly true, no, I'm kidding. Um, Obviously, there's things in hindsight we would change, or things that seemed great at the time that as the game evolves just don't hold up as well.
Hmm.
But that's the nature of a living card game.
Right.
That's just the business, and we just try to continually learn and do better. And occasionally, we're able to introduce, like you said, we're able to capitalize on things that exist in the game that suddenly make old cards look better.
Yeah.
So that's definitely on our minds,
Yeah.
to look for opportunities to do that.
Yeah. Do you have a hero or scenario that you are kind of most proud of that you're just like,
Hmm.
yes, nailed it, being the
Well, we kind
perfect
of talked
designer
about the
that you are?
heroes. Yeah, we yeah.
Maybe all of
We
them.
kind of talked
Just
about the heroes already, like
yeah.
Cyclops and Cap, and honestly, there's a lot more. As for scenarios, that's harder for me to like pick a favorite. I think it used to be like, what scenario do I find myself going back to and playing again and again? Except at this point, like I feel like I'm so busy designing the game that I don't have a lot of time just to play it for fun anymore. So I'm not really revisiting old scenarios to just to play them. I tend to be more focused on what's next, what's right in front of me and where are we going from here. Um, so like the best I could do is like look back at, each box and think, well, what was the standout for me? Most recently with Mutant Genesis, Magneto is a favorite villain of mine. And so I really felt like, oh, yeah, his scenario better be super cool and super interesting. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty happy with how that one turned out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it depends on your interests, right? Because I find I tend to like longer, more epic feeling scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our fans just want like a quick and dirty, like beat up Rhino and call it a day. And there's
Yep.
got to be room for both,
Mm-hmm.
So Magneto is not a quick and dirty, this will be over in a minute scenario. It's a journey.
Yeah.
But that's what I like about it. I love the story it tells, that we have to, not only do we have to get on board Asteroid M, but then we need to find the Sentinel factory and shut it down. And I love the idea too that Magneto is such a formidable opponent that we can't even defeat him head on. So next we have to sabotage
Yep.
Asteroid M so that as it's falling into Earth's atmosphere, Magneto has to exert some of his energy just to hold it together. And that allows us to fight
Go
him
in
on
it.
even
Yeah.
terms now.
Yeah. 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 I think Magneto has been my favorite capstone villain of a box
Okay.
because he's very challenging, but not brutally so, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I'm with you. I like the Hellas, the ones that have multiple things going on that you have
Mm-hmm.
to, progress down through hell, or get onto the ship, and there's different story mechanics that
Yeah.
you see with side schemes and everything, or permanent schemes that kind of change up the formula a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something to keep in mind when we're designing each box is that, um, pardon me, we have such a wide range of players, such a diverse audience that some people just want kind of the same thing. They want the
Mm-hmm.
villains to be, this is a villain that I just attack and stun and confuse and beat them up and win the game so that they can test out their different decks, right? That's the fun for them is
Yeah.
bringing the different player decks is what, creates the variability. Whereas other players want more of a puzzle to solve. They want something of,
Yeah.
okay, I've already beat up, a dozen villains. Give me something different, So then you've got like Sinister Six, where you have to escape from them, right? That you're trying to get away, and the win condition isn't actually defeating the villain; it's getting out of the trap. And so we have to do a little bit of all of that with each box. I think
And
that's
so is that
something that we're cognizant of.
okay? So you do specifically look to put kind of like a storytelling scenario, a more straightforward scenario. You try and make sure that you have a little bit of everything in every single box. Is that something that you're
Kind
consciously
of,
trying to do? Okay.
yeah. I don't know how much I can speak for my coworkers, and I don't know how consistent I am with each product, but it's definitely in the back of my mind. Like if you look
Mm,
at Mutant Genesis, Magneto is more like to Hella's scenario
yeah.
than
Yeah.
to Claw or Rhino.
Right.
But then you've got like Master Mold,
Hmm.
scenario 3 is just a straight up brawl.
Yeah.
There's not nothing different that you need to keep track of other than every time he schemes, he's putting out another minion that you have to defeat.
Yep.
And that's kind of like that's all the gimmick that one needed was this is just going to be a fight, and every time that you recover, you're going to get another bad guy you have to get
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, I was playing in my initial playthrough of Mutant Genesis. I was playing Colossus, and I saw that like I was just playing on standard. It was a scheme of one. I was like, oh, that's not. I'm gonna get a minion.
Mm-hmm.
How hard can that be? I'm gonna roll down and made that mistake once, like because
To
a
get the 8 hit point
I
one.
got that. Well, I got the Sentinel Mark 8, and he pulled like the
Oh,
+1/+1,
yeah.
like, and then it was like, okay, that one scheme went up to a 5, and now I have this thing to deal with. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stay in hero form from now on. we're just gonna go
That's where
face
you
with this
want.
guy.
That's where you want Phoenix is when that Sentinel Mark
Yeah.
8 comes out with the +1/+1, and that's the one you want to mind control.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. Speaking of Phoenix, I want to touch on Phoenix just a little bit
Sure.
because I love how the balancing of Phoenix has happened and the ability to utilize your Nemesis set to kind of rein in a hero because Phoenix seems really really strong until Dark Phoenix shows up, and then like one of the jokes in one of the discords that I'm in is just like you kind of like give the side eye to anyone who puts Phoenix on the table, and you're like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But so how how did that come about? When like it's like because there are Nemesis sets that are harder than others. However, this one
Mhm.
has been completely absurd and just crazy. So how did that come about? Where you're just like, let's make a really cool hero with just like this alternate lose condition that if it pops, it's gonna be a completely different game.
Sure. Well, this actually ties into like our vision process. I've talked about this in other podcasts and interviews that the first thing we do with any new wave is we submit a vision document that outlines the story, the scenarios, all the heroes, and in the hero descriptions includes their nemesis sets. Um, and sometimes we choose heroes in part based on who their nemesis minions are, and because it's exciting. So with
Hmm.
Phoenix, you kind of know right away if we're going to do a Phoenix hero, Dark Phoenix has to be
Yep.
the nemesis minion. It's just you can't have one without the other. It's too exciting.
Yep.
Um, and it's just like, well, again, tying into the theme, right? It's like Dark Phoenix is like a world devouring threat. This is a big deal. You're not going to make a Dark Phoenix minion that just feels like another minion.
Right.
It's got to be a big deal. If Dark Phoenix hits the table, it shouldn't just be like, oh, I'll take care of that next turn. It should feel like, oh Lord, that's Dark Phoenix.
Uh-oh.
It's here, and we're all in trouble.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, I can't remember exactly where it was, but I remember some playtester feedback talking about alternate loss conditions. I want to say Boggs included something in Sinister Motors, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. So I apologize if that's wrong. I just remember reading that feedback of like, oh, alternate loss conditions, those are cool.
Hmm.
And I thought, yeah, they kind of are. And we haven't done a lot of those yet. And Dark Phoenix seems like an appropriate place that it's coming to devour the world, so that should be like an alternate loss condition. So that was kind of that set almost designed itself. You know,
Yeah.
it was just too easy to do that, and we knew we wanted Phoenix to be strong as
Hmm.
well. So it's like, okay, here we have a character with a really nasty Nemesis set. You know, what's she gonna do? And yeah, like canonically, you know, Jean Grey is like maybe the second best telepath after Professor X, you know, but
Hmm.
when she's charged up with the Phoenix Force, though, she's even stronger, right? So you're talking about one of the most powerful characters in the game. She can do so much. And yeah, just trying to figure out how to represent that without breaking the game, right? That's the
Right.
challenge with the balance.
Right.
So a lot of her powers in her toolkit, you know, like the mind control is probably the strongest card in the game,
Yeah.
depending on what minions out there, you
Yeah.
know. But she's got some really other nasty tricks too. And I just like the idea of, you know, she's always wrestling with, is she in control, or is she, you know, giving into her darker urges and letting out the Phoenix Force more. And so that was kind of the design around her was, you know, we can make her really powerful. We're like, if she's restrained, she kind of feels like, you're holding yourself back. You're still really strong, but you're holding yourself back. You're not utilizing your full potential. And if you go unleashed, you're like, wow, this is strong. This is crazy. I can do 4 damage to every enemy engaged with me, you know, and all this stuff
Yep.
for really cheap. But there's always that threat of, but Phoenix might come out, Dark Phoenix. I mean, like, oh, that could be bad.
Yeah.
Um,
One of the
and
first.
I think that's one of those things where we're just trying to give people the tools to create the experience they want,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so hopefully people are just having fun with that tension. And it's not going to be for everyone, right? Some people will be like, I don't want to worry about my Nemesis set showing up and ruining the game.
Yep.
You know, I sorry if that just stops you from playing Phoenix,
Yeah.
because it can happen. Yeah.
Maybe stay restrained until her obligation passes, and then you
Well,
may
yeah,
be
actually,
fine.
I had a really fun experience playing with somebody. Yeah, where I was showing them Phoenix for the first time. So they were playing Phoenix. It was like a 4 player game with the X-Men. And yeah, it was really, oh sorry, that's my phone buzzing. I just silenced it. Yeah, it was just really fun to see. They were playing Phoenix. And they were, yeah, kind of like restrained the whole game, just kind of worried about the Nemesis minion coming out. And then we reached kind of like a point in the game where it was like, just go for it, you know,
Yeah.
because it was kind of like, I don't know, I don't feel like I can do much while I'm still restrained. It was like, then just go for it. And then it was like watching the whole change in the demeanor was like, went from like, you know, kind of nickel and diming the villain to like, oh
Yep.
my gosh, look at this.
Oh, this is a 3 for 9 attack. Now let's go.
We won pretty quick after
Yeah.
after they went
Yeah.
unleashed. We wrapped that game up in a hurry.
Oh my goodness, that's incredibly fun. So, with alternate loss conditions, it is not something that we've seen a lot in the game. Are we potentially seeing more of that in the future? If you can
No,
say
we'll never
anything
do
about.
it again. That
Okay,
was
that's fine.
Dark
And that's
Phoenix.
fair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
we
I
just
shouldn't be
wanted to
so
make Phoenix
sarcastic.
unique, and we did
Um,
that.
Yeah, no, I think it is it like all things in life, it's in moderation
Hmm.
is where it's best. You know,
Yeah,
keep it novel and keep it interesting, because if you start doing it everywhere, then it's just like, okay, I got to keep track of all these different loss conditions. This is getting annoying. I just want to relax and have
yep,
fun. So, yeah, as long as it's something that people respond well to, I'm sure that we'll do more, and we'll just try not to do it all at once so it becomes overwhelming.
yeah. Which I think the Project Wide Awake scenario did that really well with,
Well, thank you.
just no chump blocking, or you can like
You
twice.
can, just not too much. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's one of my favorite ways to respond to the feedback we get, right? Where when it becomes clear that players believe the best, you know, solution to winning the game is just to play lots of allies and, you know, throw them under the bus for every attack, and your hero never takes any damage. It's like, okay, that's legit. I'm not mad about that. That's part of the game. But it's also an opportunity then to design something novel that will
hmm,
challenge players then to adjust their strategy. Because if you, yeah, if you play Project Wide Awake and your strategy is just throw allies in front of villains, you're going to lose pretty quick,
yeah,
you know. Um, but if you're not, like, if you're used to defending your own attacks or taking the hits or whatever, you probably come out okay.
yeah,
Um, and so yeah, and again, it's trying to do it in a way that feels fun and creative and not just like, you know, like mean spirited or
Hmm.
like I'm coming after your allies, in a way that like,
Right.
well, I can't play them anymore. It's not fun
Yeah.
because you still can play allies. Just be careful how
Yeah.
many you let the villain defeat.
Yeah. And it kind of feels more heroic not throwing the allies under the bus too. Like
Right?
just, oh yeah, here.
Yeah,
You have 1 health left. We're gonna have Venom hit you for 3 plus
yeah,
6 boost cards. Have fun with that. Like
yeah. I'm not sure how much I'd want to follow Captain America if he was just like, you take the hit. No,
yeah.
you take the hit.
Look
You're the one with
safe.
the
You
shield, dude.
yeah. Yeah, right. Excellent. Is um is there anything kind of on the horizon that you are really excited about that you can talk about?
I mean, I'm always excited about what I'm working on, but I can almost never talk about it
Yeah, that's fair.
'cause we can only talk about things that have been announced.
Hmm.
So the most recent announcement was Gambit, and that was really exciting to see people respond to the Gambit. I'm really happy to hear as a Gambit fan that you're excited for that because it's hard, right? Like there's so
Yeah.
much expectation on these characters, and you could design Gambit 100 different ways,
Hmm.
right? And so trying to pick one of those and
Hmm.
focus on it, naturally people are disappointed. Like I've seen a lot of comments about like, oh, I thought there'd be something where you like throw cards. And I want to say that that was discussed.
Really?
Like that was in my original pitch. I wanted to have a card that was like, you
Yes.
throw this card and, have some kind of rules like, you got to stand back, throw the card. It's going to do this much damage, but if it lands on the villain, it'll do this much more, just for fun. And then there were whole conversations about like, we don't want to exclude any of our players from
That's
having
fair.
the full experience.
That's fair.
And some people can throw better than others. And so that was like, that's a fun, cheeky idea, but let's not do that just because it could create a negative play experience
Mm.
for some of our audience. And that actually that was part of the Spider Ham discussion as well. Like if you look at Spider Ham's cards carefully, all the flavor stuff of sticking your tongue out or wiggling your body or whatever, they're not part of the cost.
Right.
They're just flavor. They're just because we didn't want to exclude anybody who didn't feel comfortable sticking their tongue out at the table or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever it was. Like you don't have to do these things, and so yeah, ultimately, at first I was a little disappointed. Like I thought it would be so fun. I'm like, people are going to want to throw cards. They'll love it. But then I thought, this way we're not excluding anyone. That's probably for the better.
That and yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I still probably will throw my cards when I'm playing Gambit, like onto the table. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, there's
So
nothing stopping you. That's for sure. If
exactly.
you want to, yeah, you want to take that charged card and throw it at the bad guy, you
Yeah.
certainly can. Yeah,
Depending on how many charge counters is how hard I throw it, it's definitely gonna happen. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm just afraid of my cards. Like I I did a little like YouTube short thing when you
Mhm.
announced when Gambit got announced where I threw a card at the camera and then like cut to Gambit. And I still haven't found all the cards because it took me so many takes to actually like I was setting this up because I put my monitor right here for these
Mhm.
interviews and I'm like I found another card. I'm like, oh, there it is. So
I feel like every '90s kid did that. As soon as Gambit became
yep.
popular, we were all trying to like, how does he do it? How does he throw these
Yep.
cards with any accuracy?
And like I've seen people do it like like I guess not in
Yeah,
real life but on videos like it can be done. I just like it just takes me
yeah.
40 to 50 tries. Oh my goodness. Well, Caleb, it was so incredible having you on. Thank you so very much for coming on and talking about this game that we love. Is there anything that you wanted to mention before we sign off about Marvel Champions?
Um, just really pleased, I guess, with the reaction to Mutant Genesis and the X-Men heroes, and I'm just really happy that people are enjoying them because that's something I think everyone's been looking forward to. Me especially. Just like I said, like the X-Men's what got me into Marvel Comics, and so
Hmm.
having the opportunity to design them in the box, um, that was a real treat. But it was also a lot of pressure, and so it's very gratifying to see it come out now and people are responding well to it. So I just say thank you to everyone that's picked up Mutant Genesis and played with the X-Men and then sharing their feedback that they're having a good time. I'm really happy to hear that, and think everyone's going to really like the rest of the X-Men, Mojo Mania in particular. Tony and Boggs, oh my gosh, they made the craziest scenario pack you've ever seen with three scenarios they fit in there, and it's, man, that is a treat. So I'm really
I'm
looking forward to hearing what people have to say after they play that. Yeah, it's going to be a
I
big deal.
I'm excited for the scenario packs. I like the scenario packs a lot, just because it gives a space to make very unique uh, scenarios and
Hmm.
encounters. Like Kang is one of my favorite. It's not. I'm not gonna play Kang every time I sit down, but every
Hmm.
time I
That's
do play
one of those
Kang,
epic long ones that I like.
exactly.
Again,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Because I think one of my streaming buddies, D20 Woodworking, we did a Kang run, and like we always just take way longer than you're supposed to just because we're talking. I think it was like four
Sure.
hours. And it's just like,
Yeah,
oh yep,
I
yep,
could see that. If you're chit chatting and
yep,
narrating your plays, yeah, that could take a while.
yep. But
Yeah,
I
that's one of those things. That's one of my struggles as a designer, right? Is I have to remember, like, okay, for every long, epic Caleb, scenario, there needs to be some shorter ones, just to get right to it, in and out in 30 minutes.
yep, yep. That and yeah, that's true. Because I do have a set of villains that I like to go against when I'm just want to test something out, like a weird thing, and then the epic storytelling, the ones that I adore. The I you can't have all of them be everything, but I'm
Right.
happy. I am happy that we're seeing more scenario packs because there was a
Cool.
wave where we missed. We didn't have a scenario pack in, was it Guardians wave? I think.
Yeah, I think that might be right. So we got Green Goblin and Wrecking Crew right away with the launch. They were in that first wave, right? And then we had Kang
Hmm.
in wave two, and then maybe, oh no, we I think the Hood came out
The hood was
kind
Guardian.
of during the Mad Titan Shadow wave,
Okay. Yeah.
which felt a little like, where'd this come from? But it was just an idea we were so excited about that we
Yeah.
had the bandwidth to do it, and really, I think Boggs did a great job with that one. Um, yeah, and is that was that the last one that we did then before
Hmm.
Mojo?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was happy to see the hood. I was happy to see Mojo because when there was that scenario, or there was like the wave where we didn't have one. I was like, oh no, 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 because
Well,
I was
let me
nervous that we
ask
were
you
going
this
away
then,
from that.
because
Yeah,
yeah, the subject of scenario packs doesn't seem to come up a lot, and I'm always kind of
yeah.
curious what people think of them, because like the boxes and the hero packs, I mean, they're obviously the lifeblood
Hmm.
of the game, and the scenario packs feel like this special thing, this like variable, and yeah, I'm just always curious, like, player reactions, because I do. Before I let you answer, sorry, I'm gonna ask you a
Yeah, yeah,
question and then I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
keep
yeah,
talking. Like we did that custom scenario contest, and we saw like
yeah,
almost every entry included like some scenario pack
yeah.
scenario. People seem to bring those up a lot within the context of that contest. But I'm just kind of curious, like out of the products, like where people see them, like how do you see scenario packs in the game?
Hmm. So, sorry, I would say that I think scenario packs are targeted to more like the quote hardcore players, and like because they're the weird ones, that's where you get like these, you're adding in mod sets with the hood or
Hmm.
with like Wrecking Crew, there's multiple different villains and it's just like really strange, and they're, I think they're less approachable, which I think is absolutely fine for like a game design perspective, because you have people like me who play this game 20 times a week or so, and I like those challenges. And with the scenario packs, I feel as a consumer that there's more space to kind of push the limits a little bit, because
Mm.
like you were saying, the core set, the boxes, the hero packs are what people are going to go out and buy. And a lot of the, well, like, maybe besides like Green Goblin, all of them are not like the A tier, like well-known villains. And so
Hmm.
the if you're not having those villains targeted towards people who are just going to pick up the game, I feel like that's a really good spot to kind of push the game boundaries, make it unique, make it like Kang,
Hmm.
make it like the hood, make it like super weird and super unique experience, because I think that's where like those types of games can, or those types of encounters can really thrive.
Cool.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
I'm always a fan of the scenario or the scenario packs because I know it's gonna just be weird and it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm always interested of like my sense is that um, the for the average member of our audience that there may be the least exciting product for like the reasons you said, that they're maybe a little more obscure
Hmm.
and they're a little different. Um, but I also kind of wonder at a point where our game has so many heroes, if people start to get more excited about seeing new scenarios, or if they're still just waiting for their favorite hero, or
Right.
I think there's always going to be a little bit of that, right?
Yep.
But yeah, no, so thank you. I was just
Yeah.
interested to hear what you had to say about those.
Yeah, I've gone through waves in this game where at the very beginning when I started playing I was like, "Ooh, I want more heroes, I want more player cards." And then it got to where, "Ooh, I want more villains. I want more villains." And now that I've
Hmm.
played so many of those combinations, that's where the mod sets start really getting interesting. Cuz
Yeah,
now I'm like, "Give me all of the mod sets you have right now." I want to play more and I want to find like the weird combinations. I do like monthly challenges. I post monthly challenges
mm,
on the Discord that I run where I try to tweak it. Like this month is like you get and you have like experience you can level up in the Discord. It's like for every card in your deck and discard pile at the end of the game, you get minus experience. So you're trying to put as many cards on the table, but it's also fun to try and find those like weird like ooh, I think it's Power Drain and Sandman are just like where the mod set is also having you discard cards and just like I love those like those weird
yeah,
just like interactions there. Those are so much fun for me. So
yeah. The reaction to modular sets in the game has been maybe the biggest surprise
yeah.
for me, and I love it. Like people get so excited for the modular sets. There was a time where I was reading reactions to some hero pack announcement, and this was kind of like almost an epiphany moment for me when someone was like, for whatever reason they weren't excited about that hero, but they were going to buy the pack for the modular set. I was like, whoa, like people
Yeah.
are that
Yeah.
excited about modular sets. I thought that I like we kind of knew like there'd be people that like say, oh, this isn't my favorite hero, but I'm going to buy it for the aspect cards, maybe,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I want those cards in my, Captain America deck or whatever.
Right.
Um, but the modular set, I was like, oh, okay, we're on to something with these. So yeah, it was like doing the X-Men. They have so many great iconic villains.
Right.
We can't do more than 5 in the box. So it was like, yeah, we're gonna get some modular sets in this
Yeah.
wave. And I'm
Yeah.
I'm really excited about those too. Oh right, yeah, the we introduced the is it teamwork keyword?
Oh gosh, I'm mad at you for that, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tell me your teamwork experience.
It's just
Tell
I like I say that sarcastically
Oh,
because
I know. I know.
I think it's a really cool design. Um, but like when acolytes, right? Like it's
Mhm.
like uh I need to get that off the table because if I flip
Right?
another one, I think I lose. Like it's like a Dark Phoenix. You
Yeah.
have like a new priority, right? It's
Hmm.
like I'm taking down I think acolytes is suggested in Magneto, right?
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
going with Magneto. I'm going with Magneto, and then one of those acolytes pop out. I was like, you know what, Magneto can wait, because
Yeah. You can't leave those around.
and
Yep.
then
Oh,
and
that's
then
great to hear.
yeah, and then you were rude, and you put a I think that side scheme. I think it's a side scheme that shuffles all the acolytes back in.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
their side
mean.
scheme. Yep.
And then
So I don't know if you saw in the Gambit announcement, we announced
yes,
Exodus
yes, and
as
he's
the
acolyte
modular
too.
set, and he's also acolyte.
Yeah.
And so if you love hate, this teamwork keyword with the acolytes, you put Exodus together with the acolytes, and you've just made your life very interesting.
Yeah.
Particularly with that attachment that recurs them, because
Oh.
they'll
Oh
trigger all
yeah.
their when
Yeah.
defeated abilities, but then they'll come back.
Oh, that's mean. That's just mean.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But yeah, I wanted to ask about that just because yeah, that was kind of one of those areas where
Hmm.
we couldn't I couldn't fit as much teamwork as I necessarily wanted to into the box.
Yeah.
I didn't want to overwhelm people with it, but I wanted to put more of it in the game because to me it's just a really juicy keyword.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was like modular sets. You know, that's your opportunity then to include some more of that. So you can maybe
Yeah.
look forward or not look forward to more of that. I don't know, depending on how you feel about it.
No, yeah. There have been a couple of ideas floating around from people that I've seen where it's like, oh, is there gonna be a card that gives all the brutes teamwork, or like, all of
Mm,
these like kind of enemies that are already kind of mean, and maybe it's an
mm,
environment or something like that. And I think
mm-hmm.
people are very excited with the design space that teamwork opens up, because
Cool.
it can it can be brutal.
Yeah. Well, that was just such an important thing for me to include in this box because I really tried with the X-Men to stress their teamwork, right?
Yeah,
That the
yeah,
X-Men
yeah.
more than any other team at Marvel Comics is a team.
Yep.
You know, that they train in the Danger Room, they live together in the X-Mansion. This is like all they do. Um, and so a lot of their enemies, like in classic comic book storytelling, their enemies are like just evil versions of them, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so they also, like the acolytes, also live and train together, and they're very good at
Hmm.
what they do. And so I kind of like that they're using the X-Men's, strategies against them, and I wanted that to be in the game. So I'm glad people are liking that. That's cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. It is very cool. I've really enjoyed all of the X-Men and how they work together with like X Mansion and how that can heal, and multiple people can trigger that when it's on the table. And
Mm.
then the other thing that was in Gambit's announcement, it was Mutant Educators, I think is the new card that was announced
Yeah,
there.
Mutant Education, I think.
Mutant Education, where
Yeah.
and I'm a huge fan of this. Well, you've seen it with Monica Chang and now with Mutant Education, where it references another card
Hmm.
there, where it's like,
Yeah.
and then if X Mansion is in play, it's like, oh, well, that's
Yep.
cool.
Get a kicker. Yep. Yeah, that was something. I'm really glad to hear people respond to that because it's funny. I've spent my entire career at FFG working on co-op games, but so often I think first as a solo player.
Hmm.
So I will write abilities like X Mansion to be like exhaust to heal one of your characters. And then I think, or someone will have to remind me. Often it's Tony asking, like, why can't that work for my X-Men characters too? And I'm like,
Right?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's a co-op game. I should do that. And so it was great to have teammates and playtesters to give that kind of feedback. And we really started to lean into it to say, okay, yeah. As a team, we want to make sure that the X Mansion gets to the table. Like you just don't feel like you're the X-Men without the X Mansion
Yeah. Yeah.
you know and yeah, let's have cards that reference it. We want to go to alter ego a lot. We got to go back to the school, we got to take class, we got to
Hmm.
go to the danger room, do some training, we got to practice and get ready. And so yeah, it was a lot of fun making cards like that of like mutant education. This is what they do. It's a school.
Yeah.
So what am I learning? I'm learning how to use my powers. Okay, I'll go grab one of my signature cards, shuffle it in so I can use my power. Oh, but is X-Mansion in play? Yeah, now draw a card, maybe you'll get
Yep.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. I I love that type of design where it's like it starts to pull away from kind of the meta deck build, and it's like, oh well, and I'm thinking more Monica Chang at this point, where it's like I didn't really run surveillance teams, but now I am, right? And
Hmm.
like you see that
Yeah.
with this mutant I don't even, it's I haven't if I don't see the card in my hand,
Education, I
I
think.
can't
Yeah.
remember the cards. Mutant
Yeah, it's all
Education,
good. I
where
designed most of them. I can't remember them all either. People will ask me, what is this card? How does this card work? And I'm like, what does that card even do? I can't remember. I'm
because
sorry.
you've probably seen it in like 4 or 5 different iterations of what it
Oh
does.
gosh, yes, that's a real thing sometimes. So it's like, oh wait, that's right, we changed it. I can't keep it all straight. That's why I got to look it up or have the card in front of me.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, it was so much fun talking with you about this game. I look forward to future talks, and I look forward to all the new content. I'm so excited for the rest of the X-Men. I'm so excited to see how kind of they all start working together. I think the team up cards have been really fun in this wave, especially where we
Yeah.
have heroes now that have multiple team up cards,
Hmm.
and how that's working with X-Men, and then how it is just a team game, right? Like
Hmm.
you were saying, I primarily play this game solo, but I've recently found a group, so I get to play it like 4 player now, and then it's with X-Men, I feel like the multiplayer experience has just been elevated just because you have so
Good.
many interactions between everything. And so,
That's great. That was the goal. So I'm really glad to hear that.
well, you nailed it. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun chatting too. I look forward to coming back sometime.
Awesome. Well, thank you all and see you around.
Yeah.
See you.